3, 2, 1.
You're listening to the Life in Action podcast, faith, finance, and family. Here are your hosts, Mike and Philip.
Hey, welcome back to Life in Action. This is Mike.
Hey, this is Philip Baker.
And we really appreciate you coming back to the show and listening to another great episode. Philip, this is episode 25.
25. Time flies when you're having fun. It has been fun.
It does, man. It has been a lot of fun.
It has. I've learned a lot. It's been cool. People have great stories, great lives, and it's just a great avenue to pull it out of people. I love it.
So in this episode, we want to just pause and take a moment, take an episode, and it's going to be one where we just kind of look back and reflect on some of our favorite points of interest, some of our favorite guests, some of our favorite moments on the show, some things that just stood out to us, some things that just popped to us, some things that are memorable, things like that. And you as a listener, we hope you would kind of listen to these and go, hey man, I don't remember listening to that one, or I've never listened to that one. That sounds like a really good episode. I'm going to go check it out. And then you can go back and take a listen to it. So just a kind of a recap of the season so far.
Right. Hey, everybody loves highlights. Come on, you get on
Yeah,
Sports
highlight
Center,
reels.
you watch highlights. Yeah, you got to watch a trailer for a movie. So this episode is for all of you like us who like highlight.
Yes.
And so, Mike, I know one of the things you get asked a lot is about starting a podcast. And I mean, and you've done so much of the work with this thing. And, what's that been like? What would you tell somebody?
Man, starting a podcast is, for someone like me who's not like a tech guy, and you're probably even worse than me because you're not a tech guy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You love technology. You love Apple stuff. You love your watching it, all that stuff. But the learning curve of a podcast is so much harder for someone like me. And there was a lot of trial and error. There are definitely some applications, some websites, some things that you use that make things a lot easier. Like I have found Descript, which made my life so much easier on editing and stuff like that. Which involves some AI. But really, honestly, it was a lot of frustration for us. So, I mean, the very first episode we did, we didn't even we had 4 guests lined up and we got to do one. We got to do David Riles because everything just fell apart. I was just
it's like,
we're so
sorry,
discouraged.
we'll call you back.
Yes. And
We're
thank God one
sorry.
of them was just, it was so discouraging, man. I was like, God, I hate this. I wanted to give up. But you know what? I think a lot of podcasts that start out, they only make it to like episode 10, 9, and they just kind of give up and stop because it is difficult. But here we are on episode 25. And
right. And then when you make the podcast, you've got to get it out, and you're posting reels, you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, you're trying to get the information out, and and that's kind of an adventure in itself. So
it is.
It's never stopping ripple. But it's been fun, and I really appreciate all your work and all that you've done to make this thing successful. 25
I
episodes,
enjoy doing
dude.
25. And yeah. So, and you're right. There's a lot. There's probably about 5 or 6 hours that go into each episode, because doing the episode is the easy part. Talking on the microphone and having a subject, that's the easy part. It's the editing and like you said, the reels and all this stuff to promote the web, to promote the podcast. That's where the rubber meets the road. And
making it
so
easy
it's been
for
a lot of
people
fun,
to
man.
find it, see it, and listen to it. And then thank goodness you can post it and it goes over all the platforms. And so, you're listening. Life in Action is everywhere podcasts are heard.
And now was something we didn't start out doing just because didn't want to overwhelm myself. I didn't want to be like, this is so hard. I want to quit. I didn't do YouTube. We didn't do YouTube at the beginning because in my mind, that's another editing thing. I've done YouTube before. It's a lot of time. But I saw that the way that we were doing it, YouTube was just another button to push and it loaded it up and it wasn't very much more time. So now we are now on YouTube, and people would ask, oh, we're on YouTube, are y'all? Well, we're not on YouTube, but now we are. And that's good. We're starting to add some episodes, that that we have film and video for. We'll start adding them on there. And so if you haven't checked out our YouTube yet, it's Life in Action Podcast. I can't believe that was available.
Subscribe.
But yeah, go subscribe to the YouTube if you're a YouTube watcher. Before we get into, so we want to start touching on some of these episodes. I know, Philip, you got some stuff. And what's great is I really want to hear what you have to do, because you're certain things stand out to you that don't stand out to me. Before we start that, I have a letter that I want to read from one of our biggest fans right here.
All right.
I'm going to read this to you. So, dear Life in Action, I just want to let you guys know how much your show has helped me. I have listened to every episode, not just once, but several times. Each time I listen, I am challenged by every guest that comes on. My faith and relationship in God has grown so much by being a follower. The show has literally changed my life. I even started listening to more 70s music and realized that it's not all disco and that I really do like it. I hope you guys keep it up. Thanks for doing what you're doing.
Wow.
Signed,
That's cool.
Mike Reese. And I wrote that letter because I say it all the time, and I'm saying it again. I am the biggest beneficiary of this podcast. I have learned and grown so much by doing this, and that's the reason I don't ever stop. I haven't stopped. That's cool. I'm just, so if I always say this, if nobody else is getting anything from this, I am, and I love it. So
that's cool, Mike. Hey, same. It's been a blessing. I've enjoyed it. We've had some cool guests. We've had some great, for 25 episodes, we have had some outstanding guests, and we know who's lined up. And with your relationships and my relationships, we've got some incredible men and women of God, finances, family that are coming our way. So stay tuned. It's only going to get better.
Yeah, it's only going to get better. So let's get into it. So,
all right.
24 episodes under our belts. What has popped out to you?
Well, I know we were going to, just pick, of course, it's always hard to do. Of course, everybody always says that, but just a few top 3 moments for me, top 3 moments for you. And so I was jotting some notes and kind of looking over all the episodes, and these are in no particular order, but these are just 3 of the things that just stood out to me today. And I guess the first one for me was one of the very first episodes we did. We interviewed a really good friend of mine, Paul Tropel, who is a missionary to the world, been to so many nations, raising up pastors, raising up leaders, over 20 years as a pastor, over 20 years in Tanzania, Africa, and just what God is doing with him and Debbie is amazing. And, and we didn't just talk about ministry, we talked about family. And, he's got 3 kids that just have 3 great marriages and love God and serving God. And it was really really an honor to sit down and talk to him. And probably the moment that meant the most to me, that I really enjoyed, was Paul started talking to you and I and everyone about the secret place, the secret place, the quiet place, that private place with God. And he began to talk about his devotional life, and and scripture observation and application and just that. And just every morning getting up, getting in his word. God, I am here to meet with you. And that really stuck out to me. And the reason is because what he was telling us, and we all need to hear it. There's no one who is so super spiritual that they don't need to hear this. But he was showing us that your public life is built on top of your private life. And, for me, who's an evangelist and in over, 50 churches a year, there's so much time that I spend in the pulpit and doing seminars and in the public life, that it was just a wonderful reminder that you got to put the work in the secret place, got to put the work in your private time with God. And so that was really, really awesome. And being in full-time ministry over 30 years, I needed to hear that just as much as anybody needed to hear that.
Man.
What about you?
Let me tell you, you stole one of mine, which is great because that gives me room for another one. But that, and if you haven't heard this episode, it's in the beginning at the very bottom of our
Yeah.
podcast. It's called The Secret Routine with Paul Trokel.
Right.
He tells some amazing stories in there about a guy who got healed of AIDS and all kind of stuff. And I'm gonna cut the story because my original title for the thing was Secret Routine, Getting Healed of AIDS.
Yeah.
Getting healed of AIDS, and then something with Paul Trokel. And I sent him the episode. I was like, "Hey, do you like the picture and everything?" He's like, he goes, "Dude, the title looks like I got healed of AIDS." We went back. You remember this? We went back and forth like 3 times with different titles
because
he's like, "Dude," he's like, "Mike, every one of them looks like I got healed of AIDS, and I'd never had AIDS." And I was like,
they're going to
just
interview
crying.
someone who got healed of AIDS.
"Got healed of AIDS." Because the last thing I want is the all the churches that I go to, and I had AIDS, which is, but there was a man in that podcast who actually got healed of AIDS, which is amazing. But yeah, I mean, I even brought the book. Look at this. This is the book that he talked about, The Divine Mentor by Wayne Cordero. And because of Paul, I got this book and I read this book. And let me tell you, life-changing stuff in that book. And it's all about what you talked about, the secret routine, it's not even a secret. It's just spending that morning, that quiet time with God, and it literally changes the course of your day. So in my life, I took this episode and it so like changed me, and I started doing that, and that's one of the main things that has changed my life. And it's the journaling, like you said, the SOAP.
Yeah.
The SOAP, scripture, observation, application, prayer, is doing that every day, and I am growing exponentially because of that. And that was just one episode that was so powerful.
Praise God. All right. Well, you're up. Go.
Oh,
What's
man.
yours?
Okay. Man, one of the most powerful words I've heard this year that's just hit me was the episode titled Shameless Audacity with Imran Sandhu. And he's got an amazing story.
Be one of yours. I knew that was going to be one of yours. I started to grab that when I went, no, there's no way Mike's not going to use that one.
Dude,
it was good.
Shameless. It was so good.
Audacity.
That word has stuck with me. And whenever I feel like there's something I really need from God or something I'm really believing for, it's that shameless audacity. I think it's I think it was in Luke that he had the verse where the guy goes to the door and he knocks. He said, "Hey, I need bread for my family or for my friend that came over tonight." And he's like, "No, go away. My kids are asleep. We're asleep. Go away." No,
right.
He goes, because of his shameless audacity, he did it for him. And it was just like, where that was so good. And so that is definitely a word that's going to stick with me for the rest of my life. And that came out of that episode with Imran Sandhu. He's from Pakistan, has an amazing story about coming to America with like $500 in his pocket or something crazy like that, with a family of 3 or 4, started working at a convenience store. And now he
came out of Pakistan where he was running a bank, and now he's at a convenience store in America working 18 hours a day. It was amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, amazing.
And now he owns like a large business here in this area, which is crazy. He's now the owner in like, well, how many years was it? 6 years, 5, 7 years, something. Yeah, and God just accelerated it. Yeah, but that was
he
great.
was an amazing guy. Make sure and catch that episode. Go back and listen to it. It's powerful.
Yeah. So, all right, you got one. Go ahead.
All right. We got to interview Pastor Trey Dowdy, pastor of Church of the Living God down in Galveston, Texas. And Trey had quite a story. He was 3rd generation preacher, and his Paul, Pastor Robert Dowdy was, I've called Pastor Dowdy the Pope of Galveston. He pastored going back to the 70s and started off in a tent. And just, hearing that story. But it was during that episode that Trey, we had a great moment. Trey began to talk about how, he had been pastoring for a number of years, and the church was, struggling. He was struggling, and he wasn't seeing everything he was wanting to see. And then he got connected with Todd White, Power Love. He went down to Brazil, and it really changed his life. He was put in a position where he was able to pray for some people out on the street, and he saw miracles. He saw Jesus outside the church. He saw Jesus outside the pulpit. He saw Jesus outside the altar. He saw that Jesus and miracles and healing could take place, outside the church. And he
Yeah.
brought that back to Galveston. And it took time, but he built that into the DNA of Church of the Living God. And and what made that so special for me is, first of all, that's our home church. I'm
Right.
really never there on Sundays because we're always, in the churches of America. But at the
That's
same
good. I love that.
time,
I love the dogs.
yeah. Well, great timing on
It's
that one.
it's normally my dog, not yours. So
Yeah. Let's see here. And
oh yeah, get
so,
rid of it.
but he came back and he built that into the church. And I got to see that, Mike. I got to see that growth and that increase. I got to see that transition, and I got to see that church go from around 60 wonderful people to well over, 500 people. And anytime I go to church there, I'm pretty much always there on Wednesday night. I'm walking around and I'm seeing people that would never be in a church if they
Right.
didn't take Jesus to the street and to
To the
Walmart.
streets. Yep.
And hearing Trey say, the whole church, we don't go to Walmart for milk. We go to Walmart for that divine appointment, that divine connection. And so that was a really amazing episode for me because I got to witness it. And as I travel in churches, what God did for Church of the Living God, I know God can do for every church.
Yeah. Yeah. That if you haven't seen that or heard that episode, it's called Miracles in Walmart. And we're
yeah.
actually gonna be putting that one on YouTube here in a few weeks. But it's on
Awesome.
the podcast, and it's Miracles in Walmart with Trey Dowdy. And man, I love Trey. I got to meet him on that trip to Bulgaria, and being around him changed my life. So I was an extra special podcast to just like hear his story and just spend time with him and stuff. And we're definitely going to have him back on the show because he has a lot more to say.
Absolutely.
So-
Absolutely.
Another episode for me that really stuck out to me, not so much, I mean, it was spiritual in nature, but to actually have this knowledge in my back pocket was the episode with Colby Hill. And that one's called, I think that's episode 11, Defeating Cancer.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everyone should listen to
Let's
this
do
episode.
this because that's my third is Colby.
Oh,
But I'm
okay,
sure
okay,
we
okay.
probably-
I'll let you have
Well,
that. I'll let you have that one.
No,
okay.
no. Let's
I'm
just
gonna-
combine them. No, let's just combine
Oh, that's
it.
full.
Yeah.
that's
So
fine.
this is your second, and this is also my third. Let's just combine it because that episode has a story in it that very few people on this planet have ever heard. And for us to get that
Yes.
story in detail and all the little shades and the colors and the just was amazing. And so let's just jump
was.
into that episode, both of them.
Yeah. I mean, just so if you haven't seen the episode or heard the episode, it's about his fight with cancer, stage 4 lymphoma.
Every week, we are giving away a free copy of Philip Baker's book on our Instagram. All you have to do to enter is follow our page. Head over to Life_in_action on Instagram, give us a follow, and you are entered. Easy as that. Now, back to the show.
In his mesothelioma.
The worst one you can
Stage
get.
4
Yeah.
mesothelioma.
Right.
And he went
was
down
given
to
6 months to
Tijuana.
live. Let's just say that he
Yeah.
was given 6 months to live. MD Anderson walked in and told him, "You'll be dead in 6 months. There's nothing we can do for you." There is a research program that we would like to get you in. Now, it won't help you at all, but it could help future people.
And here's
Matter of
somebody to
fact,
help you write
yeah.
your will.
And here's someone to help you write your will. Come on. Well, this was, wow.
Oh, such amazing episode.
Go ahead.
But having that knowledge of there's an alternative to conventional medicine here in the United States, and he went down there and he's alive today. He's completely healed of stage 4 lymphoma. And he had to walk that out by, going, okay, I didn't get somebody touched me and I got healed like right away. I had to walk
Right.
out this healing. And he really talks about how, if I would have got healed right away, I wouldn't have experienced the change in my heart that I did because
Right.
I walked out this process that took years. But I think
Mhm.
he got healed like in 6 months, but the process to completion was years. And
Right.
he said, I walked through it and it changed me.
Yeah. Yeah. And then a book came out of it, From Triumph to Tragedy, you know?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, from tragedy to triumph.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great book. Yeah, let's get that backwards. But that book's on Amazon, Pastor Colby Hill, From Tragedy to Triumph. Just a wonderful book.
Yeah.
And what Satan meant for evil, God turned it for the good.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting to spend time with him in Bulgaria on that trip after interviewing him was a great treat for me because I really got to get to know him and he's an amazing guy.
Absolutely. The moment in that episode that stood out to me, there's so much to apply. But when he said every year he goes to MD Anderson and he gets a scan,
Yeah.
and he gets the scan and it comes back, he's cancer free. And I asked him this question, I said, has MD Anderson ever asked you how, where?
Yeah.
Have they ever asked you a question about being absolutely cancer free from stage 4 mesothelioma when they told you you had 6 months to live? Have they ever sat you down and talked to you and asked you how? And when
Mm.
he looked at us and he said, no, no,
Yeah.
they've never asked that question. And, I was thinking about that today, Mike, and it's really easy to sit back and it makes you mad. It
Yeah.
makes you mad, but at the same time, what can I learn from it for me?
Yeah.
And I just had this thought, there's so much we don't know in life. There's so much I don't know about finances. There's so much I don't know about health. There's so much there's all kinds of things that, we don't know. And you don't even know what you don't know because you don't know, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
uh, but it's another whole thing to not want to even know what you don't know, that you don't want to know. Then they don't, it's not that they don't know, they don't want to know because it would
Yeah.
mess things up. And sometimes I
Yeah.
wonder, is that a part of my life? Is there things that I've avoided about health, about finances, about a lot of different things that I don't want to know? La 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 la. Ignorance is bliss. I don't
Ignorance is
want to
bliss.
know,
Yeah.
right? Because then I don't want to be accountable. I don't want to have to change. Don't talk to me about that. Don't
Yes.
talk to me about diet. Don't talk to me about finance. Don't talk to me about investing. Don't talk to me about technology. I don't want to know because I don't
Yep.
I don't want to have to deal with it. So I know it's easy to judge MD Anderson, and I get it. It makes me mad as much as it makes anyone else mad that will hear that story or has heard that story. But I don't want to be like that. I don't. It's one
Yeah.
thing not to know. It's a whole other thing to not to even want to know.
Yeah.
I hope that makes
Amazing
sense. I know
story.
there was a lot of word
Oh, it
salad.
does. No, yeah, that makes sense. It's I mean, at the end of the day, they're a business and you don't have to uh get in line and do the conventional thing like everybody else. That's what he did. He said, I'm going to try something different, which it was a step of faith to do
Yeah.
because it's not the conventional path. You're going off the beaten path.
And if you're
I
out there and
told
you're
that.
listening to this and you have cancer, and man, you're leaning towards wanting to go in a more natural way. I mean, I would suggest go back and listen to that podcast, Pastor
Yes,
Colby Hill.
definitely.
It's
Definitely.
phenomenal. There's a lot of detail as far as what he went through and how all of that worked.
I was telling his story to somebody yesterday at lunch whose wife
Mm.
had actually been through cancer. And I was telling him, I was like, hey, man, this is this story. And he was just like, wow. He's like, I didn't even know you could do that. And I was like,
Sure.
yeah,
No.
you know,
Yeah. 99% of Americans, 99.9% of Americans don't know that there is a cure, that there is a way, that there is a place,
hmm
and
yeah.
it's there.
So, the next episode that just I really appreciated was probably my most favorite guest that I got to interview this year, and it just happened to be one where you were in another city preaching, and I was in a different city. We were in Bulgaria, but sitting down
Right.
with Pastor Noah Ramos
Oh,
was
great
a
guy.
real
Great
treat
guy.
for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing guy. He's an American, but he lives in Bulgaria, and he's got a tremendous story. Um, and his episode I think is called Suicide, Depression, and different things. But that's the Noah Ramos, and
So
it was
good.
really cool for me because we were out of town and we didn't have the recording stuff and everything. So I actually sat down with him in a hotel room, in my hotel room, and I felt like I was on NBC or something. I was like had the couch and everything going and stuff. It was kind of fun, but getting into his story about his suicide hit. He was standing on the edge of a cliff with his family
Right.
during a trip, a camping trip or something, and they were just going and hiking through the woods and on these cliffs and stuff. And he was sitting there. He was a pastor with so much depression at the time. He said his church was booming, everything was going great, but he had this darkness in his soul, and he was so just. And he's like, man, I could just throw myself off the edge of this mountain right now, and it'll all be over.
Man.
And he had that moment, and I think, it's what I loved about that episode is it was a pastor talking about it, because everybody thinks pastors are invincible and they're supposed to be, and they don't have any
Right.
feelings, and they got to just like be everything for everyone.
Yeah.
But number two,
They
is that
don't
he's
know
a
anything
man.
about that world. Yeah, they don't know anything
No.
about that.
And then he's a man, and men aren't supposed to have those feelings. We're supposed to be strong and carry the world on our shoulders. And he opens up and he just exposes himself and says, hey, I really went through this stuff, and this is how I got out of it, and this is how I got through it. And it's a really, really amazing, awesome story.
Oh, absolutely. And for me, that episode, you have the story, then you've just got him sitting down and going, here it is. No shame, no hesitancy.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people would go through something like that and then never breathe a word about it. Keep
No.
that hidden, keep that secret, because they wouldn't want people to think, bad about them. And he could care less, and he just
Yeah.
opened up his soul and bore it. And
Yeah.
and just the courage of that, was really phenomenal. And I just, love him, respect him even more. And we're gonna be seeing him again, real soon
Oh,
there
yeah.
in Bulgaria. And so
Yeah.
I really appreciated that. And I know, you and I, you know, here soon, we're going to do an episode on some things that we've battled, a number of years ago. I had an incident with some medicine and some caffeine, and there were other things going on in my life, and it launched me into some anxiety and some panic attacks and
Yeah.
some different things. And I know you have a story of some things that you've been through, and we're gonna have an episode where we dig into all of that, and we're just gonna lay all that bare, because you and I need to tell our stories, and how we, what happened and how we came out of that, and so
Yeah.
the whole avenue of health. And so thank you, Pastor Noah, for
Yeah.
just your story. And
Yeah.
that
It helped a
episode
lot
is
of people.
incredible. Yep.
Yeah. Helped a lot of people.
Some great
I know it
moments,
helped
man.
me. Yeah, it's good
Some
stuff.
great
And here's the
moments.
thing is I told you before we started this is the hardest podcast episode I will ever do, because I want to talk about every episode. And we're just hitting the highlights of the highlights, but every episode there's something I could go through there and talk 10 minutes on every one of them, because they're so good. So
When we got our
if you're
wives, the episode with our
Mhm.
wives, we
Yeah.
interviewed Hannah Pettifer, this little
Yeah.
27-year-old young lady who's just amazing. We
Very
got
impressive.
Malcolm Self and talked about
Malcolm.
gold and silver
Yeah.
and, and so it's just, again, we have had some phenomenal guests for this little startup podcast. And
The guest I want to bring back, I think, is David Riles. He's my pastor, but he was the first episode, and he came in and did the episode on debt. But man, he has so much to say, and he has so many good things to say, and I can't wait to get him back on. But he's the very first episode we did on debt. So,
we got him
all right.
coming
So whose
back.
turn was it?
I think that's all of our moments. I just, I'm just excited for what's ahead. I've got incredible missionaries around the world. We're going to be having Pastor Lubo Petko from Bulgaria. He's going to be at your home. We're all going to be together here in September, and we're going to catch some episodes with him and what he's doing in Star Zagora. I've got Pastor Marty Reed lined up. He's a pastor right outside of Dallas, Texas, who's very involved in politics in the Austin State Capitol. He is a historian and is going to tell us all about the Black Robe Regiment and the Constitution and how pastors and churches played an incredible role in the American Revolution. And so, and then we got business people that are coming our way. And we're going to continue to talk about marriage and family. And so again, if you're listening to this podcast on whatever platform, make sure and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram and subscribe on YouTube because the best is yet to come. We're just now getting warmed up.
Now I cheated because I have more than 3.
Okay, go ahead, finish us out,
man. I can't. I've gotta throw this one in because I think one of our most amazing guests was Miss Gina Jones, and she her episode's called "The Sacred Work" with Marketplace Christians. That episode was one that really just like shook me to the core because she talked about being a Christian in the marketplace, not marketplace ministry, but marketplace Christianity. And one of the things that I took away from that amazing episode is that book she recommended was The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And I was actually having lunch.
Yeah, that shook you up.
This is a dangerous book right here. If you want to change, and this is the book that, like you said a while ago, people don't want to change, so they don't want to hear about it. But this book right here, I was telling a friend yesterday, the same guy I was having lunch with yesterday, we were sitting down, and I said, man, I got to tell you about this book. And I told him about it. He goes, dude, I've already read it, and this is what I've been doing to change my life. And I was like, well, and we spent the next hour talking about everything that this book has done and changed our life. And so, and then that spurred probably my favorite episode that you and I have done, because you and I have done a lot of episodes together.
Yeah.
But my favorite one is the one we just did on phone addiction and pornography and Facebook and all that stuff. And that episode for me really, really helped solidify some things that I had been working out. And, I've gotten a lot of feedback from that episode from people saying, man, that was a good episode. If you haven't listened to that one, let's go check that one out. But my favorite of the ones that we've done together is probably that one.
The phone. Yeah. Because it doesn't matter everyone can relate to that. We're all trying to find our way to utilizing the phone for its benefits and stay away from its from its cons. And it's hard. It's a struggle. It's a struggle because it can be such a blessing, and at the same time, it can be such a curse. And the discipline to keep it to keep it working for you and not against you is a day-to-day battle.
Yeah. I have a new life rule for myself, and I'm not telling everybody, I'm not telling you to do this, but this is what I've done that's come out of all of these episodes. It's like I'm taking a little from here, and I'm forming this, I'm 47 years old, and I'm starting to figure things out a little bit that I'm like, I should know this stuff. I should be doing this stuff. But a wife and business and 4 kids, life is not always smooth and easy, and it's not always just like So one of the things I do is I've taken a piece of, what Paul Trokel has taught me through about, your morning devotions, and I'm committed to doing that every single morning. But I've also committed to not touch my phone, not even look at it until that's done.
Oh,
And
wow. Yeah.
and that kind of came out of the Gina Jones episode. Is being disciplined in that area, and I'm doing it, and I know I can do it, and it can be done. So literally, I don't pick my phone up until I have had my time with God, and it's amazing because I told God, I said, God, if you'll wake me up every morning, I'll meet with you. And guess what? He wakes me up every morning at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, sometimes at 4 o'clock. He'll knock on my door, and I go in and spend that time with him. And I look up and I'm like, oh my God, it's been 2 hours, an hour and a half, 2 hours,
Mike, that's
and
incredible.
it's not like duty. You always
Yeah.
talk about duty versus,
Vision.
servant. Yeah. Vision. It's vision. And it's going in here, and every day God shows up, God speaks to me. I'm writing, and I learned that from you. Writing. When you said that a while on one of the earlier podcasts about, I love writing. I'm like, I don't write. I want to love writing. I mean, apparently Philip's doing
Yeah.
something that's life-changing. He's writing down his thoughts. He's writing down things. I want to do that. How do
Yeah.
I do that? What's the benefit of that to me? And I'm seeing that in my life now. I'm journaling, I'm writing. It's just, and it's all because the time and energy that is pulled away from this, I'm now taking that and I'm reading books. I'm writing my
Mhm.
thoughts. I'm spending time with God. And literally, to sound cliche, it is changing my life doing these things. And
Wow.
it's all because we started this podcast. And I'm taking the people that God is putting in our lives, the conversations we're having, the wonderful, amazing time that I'm spending with you, because our relationship is growing even exponentially because we're doing this together,
Yeah, absolutely. I
And
feel the same way.
yeah. And I feel like
And-
in some way I'm helping promote and build your ministry, and everyone you're touching, I'm getting to touch, and sowing into your ministry, and so it's a win-win for me, for you. It's just such an awesome thing.
I feel the same way. We're getting better. We're getting better,
Yeah.
and we're increasing. And if we can take some people on the ride with us, that makes it even more special. And so,
Yeah.
this is a cool episode. I'm glad we did this. It was a great idea on your part, just to kind of hit some of these highlights. And it's really just a way to stop and say, and show appreciation to everybody who's been
Yeah.
on the podcast. I love. There's a
Yeah.
Mike Murdoch quote that says, "What you appreciate comes towards you. What you don't appreciate moves away from you." Well, we just want to take a moment and appreciate each other, but at the same time, all the people that have participated in the podcast. And there's not a shadow of a doubt that God is going to send us some incredible people just to mine the gold out of them. And so, again, thank everyone for enjoying the podcast, and
Yeah.
more to come.
Yeah. I want to leave you with this quote that I heard the other day, and it's so good. Life can only be understood backwards, but must be lived forwards. So, yeah. So this is kind of us looking backwards and saying, what have we learned? But we don't live life backwards. We live it forwards, and we just keep pushing. We keep moving on. And so on that note, hey, we appreciate y'all listening. And once again, follow and like and follow and subscribe and do all that stuff. It really means the world to us. So thank you very much.
Follow our podcast for more great episodes, and check us out on Instagram at lifein_action. Thank you for listening, and live your life in action.